Welcome to the You on the Camino de Santiago podcast. This podcast is for and about first-time pilgrims walking the pilgrimage routes in Spain, France, and Portugal. With your host, guide and longtime pilgrim, Nancy Reynolds of the Camino Experience. Is the Camino safe for a woman traveling alone? What about for a young woman, say one in her early 20s, walking alone? You may hear different answers to those questions, many different experiences from the various Camino routes, and many people will argue with you about the safety of the Camino if you try to say it's not safe. Hi, this is Nancy, and today you're going to hear the real-life experiences from a real pilgrim who I met on the Frances route in May 2025. Savannah is young, and she walked the Camino alone. She encountered some of the legendary Camino magic, but she also encountered some truly unpleasant experiences. She speaks candidly about her challenges, and then we wrap up the discussion with a call for support from fellow pilgrims of all ages and genders. My conversation with Savannah again reminds me that until we get to the Camino, until we actually walk the ancient road to Santiago de Compostela, we don't really know what this thing is. We can read about it, watch videos on YouTube, even hear stories from friends who have walked it. But your pilgrimage will not be exactly like any other. And we also have to acknowledge that not everyone who walks the Camino is on a pilgrimage. So how do we interact with all the people we meet, not knowing who they are and why they are there? Let's see what Savannah has to say about this. Oh, and Happy New Year. Happy Camino year. May 2026 bring you all that your heart desires. Here's Savannah. Savannah, hi. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Nancy. I'm so honored to be here. This is so exciting. I'm very excited.
Well, for me too, because I don't always get to meet my podcast guests in person, and certainly not before they're on the podcast. So we get to share the story of how we met in Orson. I know I'm probably going to cry because it was such a beautiful moment.
Yes.
Beautiful moment. I don't know if you know this or not, but okay, so we have to say we were in the same room at Refuge Orson on May 11th. All right.
Mm-hmm.
A 6-bed dorm room up in the Pyrenees. Absolutely beautiful. On that first day when everybody is crazy excited and nervous and no idea what's to come, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was one of the last people to arrive because I'm always sweep with my group. I'm the last person to make sure the last person makes it into Orson. And I walked into the hallway, and one of the people in my room came out and said, "Hey, there's someone in there, just so you know." And like no information, just something like there's someone in there.
My
And
goodness.
I walked in and I got to meet you. And your warmth, your energy, your enthusiasm. And I just felt so much love coming from you, Savannah.
Thank you
and
so much.
It was just such a delight to meet you.
That means a world to me, because on the other end of that, I had walked, quite early, got to Orison. They gave me my key, had a shower, because that's, obviously number one most important thing once you walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, these beautiful ladies had come in, and I was like, "Oh, hi, where are you from?" And they're like, "Oh, we're from, the USA." I was like, "Oh, cool." I said, "Are you together?" Because they seemed like they knew each other. And they were like, "Oh, well, we're doing this tour where someone takes us, a certain way, and like a certain way." And I was like, "Oh my gosh," because my dad, also an absolute fan, he said, "What are the chances you meet Nancy in Princeton?" Like, he said this like maybe a month before I had left. And I said, "Oh, that would be incredible, but let's not." Anyways, and in that moment when they said that, I knew I was about to meet you, and I could not contain myself. I was like, I need to act really cool, calm, and collected. And then you walked in, and I just started crying. I was so over the moon because well, you are such a big, part of my Camino journey, and even now, it was such a special moment for me. But I was definitely trying to be very calm, but I don't think I was. I think I was very excited.
You know what? You weren't calm, but
No.
that's real. That's
Yeah.
real, right?
Yeah.
And it's real for me when I meet someone who has been so impacted by this podcast,
Hmm.
because then I know that this makes a difference. And then I know that this is worth all of the effort that I put into it, and that it's actually touching the lives of real people. And
Yeah.
so to meet you in person and be there on your first day, because
Yeah.
I've done this enough to know how important the first day is,
Yeah. Oh
right?
no, it was absolute blessing. No, seriously, that was an absolute blessing. Like that's just being there for me. That was like, okay, I'm ready. I can do this. I can walk my Camino now. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was very special. And then I think too as well, like when you met me, I had like lots of kind of like hidden expectations about what my journey was going to be. And
Uh-huh.
so I had really set myself up for, kind of perception, which didn't end up turning out the way it would be. And it's so amazing we get to chat now about that.
Yes. Well, you sent me an email. I'm just going to take a quick look and see when you sent me
Yeah.
that email. It was short. It was actually before you even finished. It was before you
Yes.
got to Fistera. It was on June 17th. And you said, I made it to Santiago. I'm now currently on my way on foot to Fistera. And so I got to be there right at this. Oh my gosh. So from Orison to Santiago, and she's not done. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. And you shared with me some things that actually kind of broke my heart about how your experience went.
Yeah.
And it brought a flash of reality
Mm.
to be able to say the Camino experience, there isn't one Camino experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're 100% right.
And all those things that we see in the YouTube videos, and we talk to people afterwards when they're over the moon excited about everything, is not the whole story. It's not the whole
Mm.
story, right? And so I am
Yeah.
so delighted and honored that you're willing to share your story, not to be negative, not to scare people, not to say this is a terrible thing and everybody's lying about it, but to give another perspective that this is one of the possible ways the Camino experience could go.
Yeah, you put that absolutely perfectly. That's exactly how I feel. And I got so much good out of it and so
Mhm.
much light, but there were moments of extreme struggle, extreme sadness, and that I think that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you because, it's important for people to know of all ages that
Yes.
sometimes reality and what we kind of our expectations and what we get told doesn't always line up, and that's okay, but you
Hmm.
need to keep going and keep finding solutions through everything, and it's okay to have that struggle as well.
It is. You mentioned age. Can we put that on the table?
Yeah, we can put yes, we
How old are
can.
you?
I'm at 23 years old. Yeah.
Okay. You're the younger end of
Yeah.
the continuum of people who walk the Camino. And so I want to put the pin in the map, and then I want to talk about what it was like being a 23-year-old walking the Camino in May 2025.
Awesome.
Okay, let's put the pin in the map. What did you do?
I started my Camino May 11th at St. Jean Pied de Port, and I finished my technical end is in Santiago on June 15th, but then
Okay.
I did continue on to Finisterre after that. But to be honest, like they were two kind of very different things for me, finishing in Santiago and then finishing in Finisterre. So yes, it was very interesting.
So now we have to know what were the differences? What was that distinction for you?
I think because, Santiago, it's so grand. And
Mm,
I really had struggled through, from St. Jean till Santiago, that when I got to Santiago, I got, the certificate, you have the bagpipes, the whole experience. it's almost overwhelming how,
Hmm.
you feel like this massive achievement, and then choosing to walk that extra, about 100 Ks extra. There's actually a very important reflection that happened for me. And so when I got to Finisterre, I was even more emotional than Santiago. I can't even put it into words. It was incredible. Yeah, it was so special. And that's why I always say to people, it's different. The ends for me were very, very different. So yeah, very important.
So it almost sounds like you marked the finish line as Santiago, but
Hmm.
then there was more to your pilgrimage.
Yeah,
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 so done in Santiago, which the Camino de Santiago and the Tomb of St. James in the cathedral is sort of an endpoint. It's the sacred center that we walk toward, whether or not it's sacred to you. But that put the sort of the period at the end of the sentence. But then there was more. And
yeah. And there was more.
that more, it sounds like really was an essential part of your Camino.
It was, yeah, because I found too that people walking that last 100 kilometers from Santiago to Finisterre were all in the same mindset. And that was kind of the first time actually that I had met everyone that were walking that extra bit because they wanted to, not
Mm,
because they were, trying to get to Santiago, because they needed that last part to complete their whole journey, if that makes
mm.
sense. So yeah, and some people didn't need to, but for me, I needed a bow. I needed to touch the water and know I couldn't
Yeah.
go any further. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, love it. Love it. Well, let's talk about your why for
Okay.
walking the Camino, and then we'll get into what happened and what the experience was like. What had you go walk the Camino?
Well, I had a few reasons. So I graduated from my university degree in December. So that was a big milestone in my education. But my mum passed away 3 years ago in May.
Ah,
And yeah, grieving is hard.
yeah, it
Grieving is
is.
really hard when you're
Yeah.
quite young and like you lose such an important person.
Oh, so you would have been 20 when she passed?
Yeah, it was actually a week before my birthday. Yeah.
That's not right.
No. So
I
yeah.
think if I could just make one rule, if I got to be in charge for a day, I would say you don't lose your parents when you're that young.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. And I'm so grateful that I have such a beautiful family, my dad and my brothers, and like I'm very blessed in that regard. But yeah, it's hard to grieve publicly as well in a space where you lost someone that a lot of people know. And so I really needed a moment, to myself. I needed a moment where I could grieve and cry and let out my emotions and, yeah, have that for me. So, yeah, that's probably one of my big, big whys.
Okay. Okay. So you went to grieve. You
Yeah.
went to mark this transition time in your life from university to career and maybe put a gap in there to
Yes.
process all that, which I think is really healthy.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other motivations? Anything else that had you go walk the Camino?
Probably the third thing was just being able to know that I could do something like that. I feel like when you're in the education system, having completing a degree, that's quite a big quite a big mark. This is quite a big physical, mental, and spiritual thing. Especially like for myself as well. Like walking with God was a really big thing that I wanted to, develop my relationship with Him. So I was like, let's go, walk the Camino, get to know God, and grieve the passing of my mom. And yeah, so I had a few things going on with the Camino for me. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think you also had some inspiration because someone else you know had walked the Camino.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nancy's other fan, my dad. So I'm sure that, yeah, he has his own story with his Camino and whatnot, but he walked it in a December, so a different time to when I walked it a previous years. But and yeah, he absolutely loved it and was kind of the person that helped me throughout my Camino, but then also, with training, what gear to pack, he was absolute also an inspiration for me for the Camino. So yeah, he's a very special person in my life.
I can see it on your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. I'm looking forward to having him on the podcast as well. Very good. Okay, so that's the why. Those are really compelling reasons to go walk a pilgrimage, right?
Hmm.
And it sounds like to me from the very start, you knew this was a pilgrimage. This would be something significant for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how'd it go?
My Camino was, I struggled a lot in my Camino. God, there was a lot of moments where I did have lots of joy or lots of love, with particularly nature, walking through the fields and the wildflowers at that time of the year and just, the
Incredible.
stars. Yeah, it was incredible. But I really struggled. There's a lot of people on the Camino during this time that I walked. And so for me particularly, I was trying to walk in more of silence. I was trying to grieve. I was trying to reflect inward. And that for me was very hard when I had lots of people around me and lots of people that didn't necessarily walking because they wanted to be a pilgrim, more maybe because they wanted to experience the Camino and kind of what stereotypically is said about the Camino. So, yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I actually ended up walking at 4 a.m. each morning. Part of it was also because it's very hot
Hmm.
and it's very warm during the days. But yeah, I had to have that time alone to grieve. So yeah.
Okay. So what you saw were people who didn't have that pilgrimage feel to them. Like it was pretty clear that they weren't on a pilgrimage. They were just out for the
Yeah.
Camino experience. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, and people that maybe weren't they were doing it more to check a box instead of
Mm,
necessarily going for that. And that kind of is the joy of the Camino, that you can do it with whatever intention in mind, for spiritual reasons, for grief, to do it with your loved ones. I think that the important takeaway that I would say for that is just that for everyone to have a little bit more compassion for everyone.
mm.
So no matter if you're doing it as more of a tourist, if you're doing it more as a spiritual, everyone just had to have a little bit more compassion,
Mhm.
because you never know why that other person behind you or in front of you is walking. You don't know.
You don't know. You can't tell by looking at someone what they're carrying. You can see the backpack really clear, and then people do crazy things like, "Oh my God, that backpack's so big." Super
Yeah,
helpful.
very
Yeah, but
helpful.
you can't see what the internal stuff is that they're carrying,
Oh,
right?
no,
Yeah.
no.
So I would imagine a young woman like you, just vibrant, engaging, beautiful, people would want to, especially people my age, would be like, oh, I'm going to adopt you. You're my Camino daughter. I would expect that. Did you have that kind of experience?
That is so kind, but no, not really. I was kind of met with a lot of judgment that I was quite young walking the Camino. People didn't really understand why I was doing this, unless I told them kind of straight up, like, hey, this is why I'm walking. Yeah, lots of judgment. I got, told multiple times, like, I shouldn't be walking alone as a young female, that it's, that that's not really a smart move. That's quite dangerous, and no one really kind of showed me that kind of compassion I thought was going to be on the Camino. It was lots of people were very self. And that's where I was very kind of surprised with that. I
Hmm.
didn't really, yeah, which, I wanted to walk alone, but I kind of expected, a different kind of response from people for the younger generations.
Interesting. Yeah, because when we met you in Orsan, I was thinking, great, here's a bunch of people who can adopt her, right? We
Yeah.
could come with us, right? We're gonna keep our eye on you. We're gonna protect
Yeah.
you. Not like you.
Yeah.
You don't give off the vibe of needing to be protected. You seem to be a very savvy traveler,
Thank you.
but there's an instinct sometimes that parents have of, oh, she's my daughter's age. I'm gonna take care of
Yeah.
her. I'm gonna keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm surprised that that didn't happen.
It's really interesting. Yeah. To be fair, your group was beautiful. I did love them. But yeah, I think because as well, I was walking quite consistently. I had taken a few break days, but my routes were very consistent with my kilometers.
Hmm.
So between like 25 to 30 Ks a day.
Okay.
So I know I created quite a consistent speed.
Okay.
So yeah, that was probably another reason why. But yeah, it was very interesting, the response, especially about my age. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Hmm. Anything else you can share about that? What kind of reactions you got and what kind of things people said to you,
Yeah.
assuming things about you or drawing their conclusions about you based on age?
Yeah, I had a lot of the time. So, I'd walk maybe like a 30-kilometer day. And as I said before, like I walked quite early in the morning. So I would get to my destination at around, maybe 10 a.m. Like it depends what time I got up.
Yeah.
But I was before the heat of the day, I was arriving. And so I tended to be in that group where you first enter the albergues, and so I would be getting given bottom bunks. And a lot of the time, I would have people telling me that I needed to get out of the bunk, that I wasn't as sore as someone else, that, kind of not even, asking, like, and it's not a matter of like, hey, like if someone came up and said, hey, can I, sleep on the bottom bunk? I would be absolutely more than welcome. They're not a problem at all. But it was the assumption, it was the kind of the lack of compassion to me as also a pilgrim
Mm.
that was really hard. It was really hard and it wore me down. It wore me down.
So it sounds like it happened more than once.
Yeah, yeah. I booked a place because that's another thing too during this period. Unless you were kind of staying in the municipals, so the albergues that were open, and you were kind of more of a first in first bet, like best. What is it? First in first
Just come
best.
first serve.
Yeah, thank you.
That one.
Yeah, you had to book because a lot of the big major stops were booked out. So you had to book
Okay.
in advance. And so I had a lot of times that, you'd book a place and I'd get there and I, had booked a bottom bunk and someone had taken it because they saw that I was younger and assumed, and these are people that are older than me and they
Hmm.
assumed, oh, she can take my top bunk. Things like this, which I didn't expect.
Hmm.
If someone had asked me, it'd be more than okay, but it was hard to just have that reaction, repeatedly.
Really interesting because courtesy suggests that you would ask
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, I'm really struggling and I don't think I can get to the top bunk.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to switch bunks with me?"
Yeah. And it would be an easy yes. I'd be like, of course, I'm more than
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
But also the assumption that this must be easy for you because you're young. What
Yes.
was the physical challenge like for you?
Oh, the first week, that's one thing that people definitely don't lie about is about the first week. um, that was like physically so much pain, so
Mm.
much pain. Like it
Mm.
is, and it's because your body's doing something that it's not used to, and you've got a lot of different terrains. You're
Yeah.
not, you're walking on mountains, gravel, roads. It's not, easy. And so physically, it was hard. But then after a certain point, your body does get used to it. But you're always in kind of this pain, a lull of pain, because your body's recovering, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, you're walking a lot, your legs are ticking over. So yeah, physically, it was still very demanding. And I carried my pack the whole way.
Hmm.
So that was another thing as part of my pilgrimage to physically carry my pack from the start to the end. So yeah, that was another thing kind of on top of everything else.
Yeah. So it's an interesting reminder to me to not assume and not take things for granted. But it reminds me of when we walk into a bar, the first thing we do is demand something, right? Rather than go with the tradition in Spain of buenos dias, buenas tardes,
Yeah.
and then you ask for what you want. It just reminds me, I can imagine somebody coming up to you, you're laying on your bunk, and they come up to you and they don't say hello. They don't introduce
Yeah.
themselves. They don't say, I'm this person, nothing. And they go, I need your bed.
I
You're
need
like,
you.
you need to take the top bunk. I get the bottom one. With, like, come on, let's interact as people first.
Yeah, just say hi.
Yeah, show some some compassion, I think was your word, and some at least just notice that there's a human, there's a thinking, feeling, breathing, loving,
Yeah.
hurting
Yeah.
person in front of you.
Yeah. You spot on, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
That's
and to
exactly
not
right.
assume that because someone is young, this is easy.
Yes, yeah, because it's not like we're all carrying different things, and both physically and mentally as well. And I found that unless I really told people, I'm walking because I my mum passed,
Hmm.
which I don't necessarily, wanted to share with everyone, but
You
unless
don't lead with
yeah,
that, right?
no, no, you don't
Yeah.
lead with
Hi,
this.
I'm Savannah. I'm walking because my mom died. What? No, you don't do
People would
that.
feel uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So unless I kind of said that, I was met with a lot of judgment because of my age and why are you doing this? And because I was by myself, that added another thing. Because a lot of people my age would come in groups, they would, come in groups and kind of do it as a, maybe a holiday with their friends but because I was solo, it
Okay.
created a kind of another divide as well.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. It reminds me also, again, I think I said this earlier, there's no one Camino
No.
experience.
Yes.
And what's interesting is you were meeting people who were walking the same stages as you.
Hmm.
But if you had been a week earlier or a week later, you could have met a completely different
Yeah.
group of people and had a completely different experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So mind-bending to me what
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's really interesting. That's probably one of my biggest takeaways from the Camino is that walking a Camino, you have to make it your Camino. You
Hmm.
have to really take the time to reflect after each day and go, what's working for me, what's not working for me, and adjust it. Because if you keep going, thinking that you're doing the right thing, but you're not actually getting what you need,
Hmm.
then your soul will feel hurt. You feel hurt, and it's harder than if you just made a few little adjustments. So, yeah.
It is easy to get into the flow of the Camino River,
Hmm.
if you will, and
Yes.
just not realize that at every moment you can make choices. At
Yeah.
any moment you could change something and do it differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot on.
And what you don't want is to get to Santiago and go, oh, I really should have done this.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll go back and walk again?
It's a great question. If you had asked me this halfway through, then there would have been no way I agreed. And even at the end, like, in Finisterre, I said no. And at this point in time, I don't need the Camino. It's not calling me back. I think that because I struggled quite a lot, it's taught me so many valuable lessons. But at this time in my life, I don't need to go back. Never say never. And maybe
Yeah.
one day it will call me back because
Yeah.
I met people that had this is their 11th, 12th time, walking. But for me, it served a beautiful purpose, but it's not, something that I need to continue doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I really get that. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm always intrigued by these people who start with, hi, I'm so and so, and I've walked 11 times. I've walked 12 times.
Yeah.
That's what they lead with. And I'm always just intrigued by that.
Yes.
I don't actually care so much about how many times someone has done it. I want to know why.
Yes.
What keeps bringing you back? Is it because you just love the experience of being on the Camino and that in that community environment, which a lot of that you did not experience?
Yeah.
So that wouldn't pull you back. That makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
Maybe people go because pilgrimage is an essential spiritual practice for them.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if you remember Chad from the podcast. He's
Yes.
someone who goes for the pilgrimage because that's his spiritual practice,
Hmm.
right? And so I get it. I get that because that's mine as well, is to take yourself out of real life, take yourself out
Yeah.
of daily life and put yourself into this alternative environment where
Yeah.
you're forced to go deep and dig into who you really are.
Yeah.
So yeah, so your answer makes perfect sense given the experience that you had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's so, oh, I so appreciate you sharing this. I think it's so important to hear these different perspectives rather than this, the raving that we do of what an incredible experience it is. It is.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It doesn't take away like I'm very grateful. I had someone ask me, did I have fun on the Camino? And if I was giving a vocab tour of all the words, fun was not one of them.
That one hadn't yet come to mind.
Yes, no. I said it was incredibly challenging,
Hmm.
but that means neither a positive nor a negative, right? Like I knew kind of why I was going, and I got what I needed
Hmm.
in a way that maybe I hadn't anticipated. I really thought I would have a strong Camino family. I really thought that we would have communal dinners. Like I really thought that that was going to be part of my Camino, and that wasn't part of it because the opportunities never presented themselves. And I think that that's okay too. And I prayed to God a lot on the Camino. And I think as well, like if that had been part of his plan for me, then it would have occurred and it didn't. And that's okay too. So yeah, I had to remind myself of that.
Yeah, and people do say the Camino doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need, which is so annoying, but
Which is
whatever.
so annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. Because those dinners can be really fun and a great source of fun. There's the fun word, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, they're fun and they're engaging and connecting. And anytime we break bread together and drink wine, it brings us together in a different way. So if fun isn't the word you'd use, could you give me two words that you would use to describe your Camino experience?
I would probably use the word challenging. That was a great, like in all aspects, it was challenging. And because I walked quite early in the morning, I got a lot of solitude. So I had a lot of in those moments where I was really connecting with, myself, with nature, with God, with my grief. There was actually a lot of solitude in that. And then every other part was quite challenging, but I had beautiful moments of solitude. So
You are so courageous.
thank you.
You really are. I want to circle back to one thing you said earlier when people were telling you it wasn't safe for a young woman to walk the Camino. Can you talk a bit about how you felt in terms of safety and what your actual experience was?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because I think that there is a tad of a bit of a misconception that the Camino is inherently safe. And I'm not saying that it's not safe, but what I would say was that it's definitely not the safest place for people that are solo in general, solo young women in general. Just because you're walking across the country, you're going to different villages, you're meeting lots of different people, and you're also quite vulnerable because you're walking, solo along this journey. And so, as part of my kind of my safety routine, I had a few things that I put in place just to make sure that I felt comfortable. I might share a few now just in case people need that kind of advice.
I
Yeah.
would love that.
Yeah, there's an app called Alert Cops, and you can pop it on your phone. And in case you need it at all, you can just click the button, and they send out a satellite to where you are, and that alerts the authorities that you need to get there. I also carried a little personal alarm. I'm pretty sure I got it off just online, Amazon maybe, but just had this on my pack in case I ever felt the need to use it. And it's also good in case you have stray animals or whatnot,
Mm.
around in case you need it for that as well. And I also made sure that, whenever I was alone and people approached me and I felt uncomfortable, that I always told them, oh no, I'm with a group, or no, I'm not solo, I'm not alone, because you don't owe people that courtesy of the truth if you're feeling uncomfortable,
So
especially
true.
as a woman. You don't need to do that. So yeah, so just little things like this that I kind of implemented, always telling your friends the next village you're going to, back home, and things like that, especially when you don't have like a community like I did on the Camino. It was important to have these steps in place. So
Yes, yes. Because pilgrims, if you're in with a group, pilgrims will look out for each other and they'll notice, oh, we haven't seen Savannah since that first coffee break. Have you seen
mhm.
Savannah? And they'll check on you. But if you don't have those people to check in with, that is a wonderful idea to let the people at home know what your stage is as you're going. It's a
Yeah.
wonderful tip. Yeah.
And they also love it too, being part of your journey as well. They also
Yeah.
love it. It's a nice
Yeah.
safety precaution, and they also love it too. And
Yes.
another thing I thought to mention as well is that in Spain, they do have kind of a police task force just for pilgrims.
Hmm.
So this is kind of an idea, and I didn't know this before I was walking it, but if something happens where you need the police, there are specific people, authorities, just for pilgrims. So you're talking,
Yes.
in whatever language, wherever you come from, it's accessible, and it can be from the littlest thing to the biggest thing. So they're always there as a support system. So
I think you're referring to the Guardia Civil.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And if anybody wants to make a note, the direct number to contact them is 062, and that'll connect you directly to them. And then the emergency number, if there is a medical emergency or a fire or something like that, is 112. So that would be the equivalent of 911 in the US or 999 in the UK. So yeah, those are good numbers. 062 and 112. Good numbers to know. I appreciate that. You did say that there were times when you didn't feel particularly safe. I wonder if you could describe what those threats were. Like, what were the actual circumstances? Not to scare people, but just to build an awareness that you might face things that have you feel uncomfortable. Is there anything more specific you can share?
Yeah, well, like there's instances where, you would be walking maybe a little bit more secluded, and
Mhm.
people that weren't pilgrims, so, whether or not they were locals, whether or not they were also tourists, would follow you, instances like that. And it's not necessarily because they're not pilgrims, they're walking behind you, like, and you know that they're there. These are people that are following you to see where you're going, or in
Mhm.
big cities where they follow you to see where you're going. It's instances like that.
That
To
happened
me,
to
that
you
did happen to me. Yeah, that
on
did
the
happen to
Camino.
me while I was on the Camino. Yeah, that did happen
Okay.
to me.
How did you handle that?
Well, I had my alarm, so, and it
Hmm.
was on my, if you envision kind of packed straps, at the front, I had a little hook. So one,
Okay.
I had a water bottle on one side, and then my little alarm on the other. And so at one instance, I just turned around and just pulled it. And then I was also videoing at the time as well. I had my phone ready just to video, just in case anything happened. And those people kind of like stopped in their tracks, backed away, and ended up retreating. But it was instances like that where it's like you don't know what their intentions are, but then you also don't know where the next person is or whatnot as well. So it's just keeping yourself safe.
Yeah.
And, it's things like that. Yeah. If you're walking alone, you have to be mindful of this.
Yeah. It's the situational awareness.
Yes.
Yeah. To have a sense of who's in front of you, who's behind you, and who comes behind you, not from behind you on the trail,
Yes.
but joins the trail. Like, yeah.
Yes.
And I will say these types of things aren't as common as
Yeah.
everything else that happens on the trail.
Of
But they
course.
do
Yeah.
happen. They
Yes.
do happen. And we bring with us our history of what scares us and what is a threat, what we perceive as a threat. And then there are things that happen. So, from what you described, it sounds like you just handled it with confidence and with, I'm prepared and you're
Yeah.
not messing with me.
Yeah, exactly. Making sure that like you're aware, like they're aware that you're there and you're standing your ground, right? And that you're making sure that you have all the things that you need, you have all the apps, you have, if an alarm makes you feel a little bit safer, then having that. And so that, if the time comes when you need to, have that in place, it's already there. It's already there. You're already ready
Yeah.
to do that. So yeah, and bearing in mind too, as you said, that this is it happens. It's not as frequent, and and so I might have just been in a situation where this happened one day, it didn't happen again to someone else. But it's
Yeah.
important we talk about these things for somebody in case this happens to them
Absolutely.
as well. Yeah,
Yes. Absolutely.
yeah.
I appreciate that. I wonder what the role of age plays in this. So you're in your early 20s, you're beautiful.
Thank you.
And this is a real question, and bear with me if I stumble through asking it. I don't get bothered. I'm turning 60 in a month. I don't get bothered on the Camino
Mm-hmm,
anymore. But when I was 40, I did. I would have Spanish men come sit next to me on a
mm-hmm,
bench and invite me home with them.
mm-hmm.
it doesn't happen anymore, which is like, wait a minute. No, thank you.
Hey,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So did you have any sense that age was what was playing into this?
a little bit. And I think that that's just one of those things that you have to be mindful of
Mhm.
as a young woman in general as well, like traveling in general. We just have to you just have to be mindful of this because it would be wonderful if we didn't have to think about these things. But then that's kind of like the blissful ignorance. So you have to be like, okay, this is part of my journey. And just kind of making people aware. And if you find, if you meet someone that you feel comfortable with, sharing with them, hey, this is what's going on, and I need you to support me. I need you to help me. This guy is really creepy, or,
Mhm.
and making spaces, for example, like my dad has a very interesting perspective on this because he is a male, and he's older than me. He
Yeah.
has a different perspective. So for him, it's making people and women feel comfortable in spaces, where for me, it's making sure that I'm comfortable in the space. So, him and I had great conversations about how each role is so important, depending on the age and depending on where we are in life at the moment. So,
And gender as well.
and gender is, yeah,
Yeah.
and gender. Yeah, gender is a big thing.
I'm glad you brought that up because it is one of the questions that I have of my male counterparts, right, in my age group, right? Is okay,
Yeah,
how are you acting around women who are traveling solo? And, they're all decent guys and they're
yeah,
respectful and they're married. And so
yeah,
they're not the ones that are doing these creepy things, right?
yeah.
So here's the question, and I want to put this out to the people in my age group, anyone who's older, and to the men who are listening. What could they do to help you as a young woman feel more secure on the trail?
Great question. I had a guy, I can't remember where, it was maybe near to the end of my Camino, and I had a maybe in his 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and I was the only girl in about a room. It was about a 30-person room, and I was the only woman. Like I was the only woman. Yeah. And so it was hard, and I couldn't change because, it was full. And, a guy came up to me and he just said, I recognize that you're the only woman in here and that it might be uncomfortable, and just want to know if you need anything, just come and let me know. And that was one of the most pivotal points in my Camino, was these little moments of interaction. And him just saying that made me feel comfortable, and I didn't need his help, and I didn't need him. And then I didn't see him ever again, but it was that interaction that really like was so helpful. It's so little, but it
Yeah,
means so much.
yeah,
So even just acknowledging the fact that maybe the woman in the room might feel a bit uncomfortable, or hey, if you need help, let me know.
yeah. And then you have an ally.
Exactly.
Yeah,
In case you need any help. So
perfect.
yeah.
Ah, blessings on that man and his family,
Oh yeah,
right?
he was very kind. He was very kind.
I love it. Are there any more stories you want to share? Anything else about your Camino you'd like to share with us before we wrap up?
Oh my gosh. There was so many beautiful moments. My only other advice would be to take walking poles. It's very important
Okay.
to definitely take walking poles. And that in amidst everything, there are beautiful moments, but just make sure that you have your Camino experience. You take away what you need from it. And that if it's walking at 4 a.m. to get some solitude under the stars, that's okay. And then if it's walking with a family, then that's also okay. But yeah, it's very special.
Your pilgrimage your way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Love it. Savannah, I'm so glad we got a chance to chat. I've just been thinking about you and I just love
No, thank you.
spending
I'm
time
your
with
biggest
you.
fan.
Yeah, well,
I was
it's
very excited for
mutual.
this.
Totally mutual. Yeah.
You.
Mm,
Thank you. It
yeah.
was beautiful.
Ah, well, okay. So we're gonna have to end the love fest now.
Yes.
But it will never end.
No, it will never end. I'll
It'll
always be
never
a
end.
fan.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not walking Caminos, I'm always listening.
Yeah.
Always
I'm glad you
supporting.
are. I'm
Yeah.
glad you are. Thank you. Thank you. Any final words?
Um, I'm proud of anyone that starts and finishes any Camino at any stage, and just maybe if you show a little bit more compassion, no matter the age, no matter where they're from, no matter their race, ethnicity, anything, when you're walking the Camino, show that little extra compassion, because you don't know if that person needs it or not, to get them through the day. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That's all good.
Thanks for joining me today. Thanks,
Thank
Savannah.
you so much, Nancy.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.